Welcome everyone to Charts Focus 1, where we teach how to work hard and trade smart. In this video, I'll be going over the ticker symbols that we'll be looking at in the CFO Swinger Watch newsletter. All right, let's take a look at SPY. So the overall market had an amazing week last week thanks to CPI. And there's obviously this big, very gigantic gap up between Wednesday and Thursday. Since we saw CPI data coming in the morning of Thursday, right before the market opened. So the overall market, if you take a look at the weekly time frame as well, we're just wanting this bounce, right? We're just wanting this reversal. Now, here's the question, right? Are we going to revisit the previous high point that we made, which was in the middle of August? And this was created and thanks to the summer rally that we saw. And I personally don't think that, okay? Even just on the technical chart, there's going to be a very large level of resistance, which is the weekly 50 SMA, right, which is currently sitting around 413. And why do I say that? Well, because we've also rejected off of that 50 SMA, that weekly 50 SMA during the summer rally. And it's not like we had such a great and such a big news on CPI data, right? Because if you take a look at the numbers, 7.7% actual compared to the 7.9% expected, it's still not good news, right? We're still far away from that 2% target. And if you guys remember, to all my members here, that I want to see the Fed pivoting away from higher interest rates once we reach at least around 5% in inflation. And I've said this months ago, and it looks like Wall Street is finally catching on. We're starting to see analysts saying that they want to see at least maximum 6% and minimum 5%. Right, they want to see a range of the CPI data coming in between 6 to 5%. So I think the Federal Reserve will be able to start holding back on the interest rates soon once we start going below 6% and heading towards that 5%. But again, 7.7 is not great, right? We're still at very high inflation, and people are very short-minded, right? And they only look at the short-term perspective. So that's the reason why we had such a big movement, because people are thinking that this is great news, and they're not looking into the future and seeing the potential repercussions that this can have. And if you guys are wondering what I mean by that, remember, read the market summary first, right? Because I know some people look at this video first and they get confused on what I'm saying and referring to, because I have explained what I mean by what I just said in the market summary. So make sure you guys read that first before you guys head into this video. Now, with that being said, I do believe that we have a great chance to retest the $400 resistance level here, the psychological whole number level that we need to retest in order to see if we're able to continue up higher this week. We had a very large bullish candlestick on the weekly time frame, although I would have liked to see a lot more volume compared to last week's volume, or 2 weeks ago, right? So last week's volume here was very underwhelming, right? Even though we had such a large move to the upside on Thursday. So this is making me a little bit cautious, all right? And if I'm correct here, to be cautious about the volume, then we can see a very nice rejection at 400, and we can end up with a nice pullback week on the weekly time frame. So it might just be controlled selling to the downside, so we can have a nice consolidation underneath 400, or we may receive some bad news once more and then head back down and go all the way back down until we fill in the gap that we made here. So the gap fill will start at once we reach 385.64 cents, and then it will be completely filled once we reach 381.14, right? So this gap right here. So like I said, right, you guys have to remember, SPY tends to and always will fill in the gap. No matter, it doesn't matter if in the long term or in the short term, it will fill in the gap, right? Eventually. So we do have a lot of movement to the downside if we do start to fill in the gap, right? We moved on Thursday more than 20 points. So if you want to go back down, we'll probably have to move way more than that, all right? So for SPY here, this $400 level will be key this week. But, if we take a look at the other perspective, a little bit more of a bullish perspective, there will be some, impulsive buying coming in at 400. And once that happens, we can see the price peaking above 400 for a little bit. And if we see enough buying coming in at 400, if we see enough buyers defending this 400, this retest and defense at this 400, we can definitely see continuation to the upside and until we reach 404. Now, why am I saying 404? Because that's also where the 200 SMA will eventually reside if we do continue to move to the upside and above 400. So there's a simple trade here for SPY. You guys can long 400 and then exit at 404. Very, very simple. Right, and you can also see that the 200 SMA on the daily time frame is flatlining here, right? Instead of curving to the downside, right? Since the price is now catching up to the 200 SMA, it will flatline, and it will flatline at this 404 level. Right, 404 level is your maximum price target for this week, and if we do reach this, then we'll have a very, very heavy amount of selling coming in, since this 200 SMA is a very heavy level of resistance as an SMA. So we will definitely see a heavy level of resistance. But that is only dependent on whether or not we will break above 400 and stay above 400. Okay. Now, if we do move to the downside, there isn't too much support, maybe around 395 on the intraday time frame, but that's it, right? And if you start heading back down, we don't have much support after 395, and eventually we will have to retest 389.50 to 390, which was the area of resistance before we decided to break above and break out on Thursday after CPI data came in better than expected. Okay, so that's a pretty simple rundown on SPY. I mean, you want to keep it simple with these levels, especially as we're still seeing that euphoria from CPI data, even though it's not too good, right? We're still very, very high. So watch out for all these levels, right? It's 3 major levels to watch out for: 404, 400, and 389.50, or you guys can just round it up to 390. All right. So make sure you guys are always following with the game plan whenever you're playing SPY. Okay, so our first name here is Wix. And the reason why I chose this is that, well, this one had a very, very amazing earnings gap up, and it held the earnings gap up. And if you guys remember, I tend to look at names that have, gapped up at least minimum 5 to 10%, and they're holding that gain. But this name is gapped up 20% on the day here of earnings, and it's held up that gap. Now, obviously on Thursday, every single name literally just popped up to the upside. So this name definitely had immense amount of help on Thursday to hold the gap up here instead of flushing back down and filling the gap completely, as some other earnings names have done on Thursday. So we've definitely held this 80.50 level. But if we come back down and retest 80.50, because the only time we've retested this level as new support was on the actual earnings reaction candlestick on Thursday. So there definitely will have to be some sort of retest at 80.50 in order for us to have a nice healthy move to the upside, and eventually allow the 10 and the 21 SMA to catch up. Now, the only thing that worries me is that the 10 is very lagging on this name, right? The 10 is below the 21. The 21 is actually crossing above the 10. And whenever that happens, we tend to see the price lagging. Okay? I would rather want to see the 10 SMA crossing above the 21. But for now, we're going to see something like this, right? So this is the 21 SMA that I'm tracing here, right? So let me make the color a little bit more identifiable. And then we're going to have the 10 SMA doing something like this, right? So it's going to be following closely to the 21 SMA. However, it will take some time before it starts to support the price higher and eventually break above all right, break above the 21 SMA. Okay, and that will be the true indication of us breaking up higher and above this great base that we've formed. So that's the reason why I gave you guys this confirmation entry point to the long side of 87.20. And this is a very critical level of resistance, because if we break out of this, then we should be able to take out any of the supply that we saw back here in mid-March and mid-April. Okay, so our second name here is CVNA, Canva. So I'm looking at this one again because there could be a very prime opportunity for us to have a day trade on this. And the reason why I'm starting with the 2 hours is that, well, frankly speaking, the daily time frame doesn't really show us much. Okay, but I want you guys to remember this 13.50 level and the daily 21 SMA that's currently residing around it. Right, so 13.50 and the daily 21 SMA. So in the 2 hour time frame, all right, we've basically closed slightly above the 2 hour 50 SMA. And guess what? The 50 SMA on the 2 hour time frame tends to be very, very heavy level of resistance. How do I know this? Well, just take a look at the past. All right, so we've been constantly rejecting every single time we've got anywhere near it, or we actually retested it, right, on the 50 SMA, and we've been rejecting every single time. So this may be a change of heart here for the buyers, right? Because we've closed above the 50 SMA on the 2 hour time frame with good amount of volume in the past, so on Thursday and Friday. And with the ugly names having a lot more momentum, especially on Friday, right? On Friday, we saw the pretty names selling off and all these ugly names continuously going up higher. There is that good chance that tomorrow, come Monday, we have CVNA still rising above $12, which will be the kind of a confirmation here to continue to long this name until we reach that 13.50 level that we saw on the daily time frame. And we will also be retesting the 21 SMA on the daily time frame, like I said a few minutes ago. So why does this matter? Well, because we've finally closed on a very, very bullish candlestick above the 10 SMA. And whenever we have that first close above the 10 SMA, we tend to get the second retest on the 21 SMA here, right? So the first retest was on the 10 SMA, and then the second retest will be on the 21 SMA as we try to reverse higher, right? In that chronological order. So with the price action looking very, very good, with a very good closing price near the high of the day, since the closing price was at 11.88 and the high of the day was 11.90, I think there could be a very good momentum run still left, at least one more day, right? At least into Monday tomorrow, at the closing time on Monday, for us to reach $13 at the minimum, right? But if I want to see the maximum price target hit, I want to see 13.50 hit first, okay, before we reject. Now, my only concern again is the 2 hour 50 SMA. So that's the reason why I gave you guys a short entry as well on CVNA. So if you reject the 50 SMA on the 2 hour, then we will definitely have to break below and eventually break below 11.50 and head all the way back down to 10.50. That should also provide you guys with a good amount of profit if you guys play that short to the downside. And specifically, I'll be providing weekly contracts so you guys are able to capture any type of small intraday movement on your premium contracts, right? Or on your premium in your contracts. All right, so the third name here is ASAN. So this one, amazing breakout out of the descending channel or falling wedge, right? And ASAN here, again, we're retesting multiple major SMAs, and we decided to close slightly above the daily 50 SMA. But again, this worries me because we've also retested nearly, almost, very, very close at the $22 whole number level, which is the confirmed entry to long, right? We could have had an earlier entry around 20.50 or around 21, which is what I provided for you guys last week, I believe. If the numbers are wrong, my apologies, but just based on what I'm seeing here, that would have been my revised entry point for ASAN. But regardless of that, with the high of the day on Friday being 21.96, all right, which is 4 cents away from $22. just leads me to believe that there is a possibility that we can pull back slightly on Monday. And if we do pull back, I would suggest that looking for a bounce at 21 might be just your best bet to long this name before it breaks above $22. And if we do break above $22 and if we continue to stray away from the 10 and 21 SMA, you have to be cautious, right? Because the 10 and 21 still hasn't caught up with the price, right? Sure, we've moved away from the 10 SMA. However, we are not seeing the 21 SMA, okay, starting to curl downward just yet, right? I want to see a steep curve in the 21 SMA. Why? Because that will allow the 10 SMA to quickly catch up to the price and break above and cross above the 21 SMA, right? I've talked about this on CVNA a few minutes ago as well. So, or I believe Wix, okay? So this is what I want to see on the daily time frame for Wix. So I want to see the 21 SMA kind of calm down and flatline and start to kind of curl downward, which will cause the price to start consolidating and pull back. That's the reason why I said that we have to be a little bit cautious here and not try to jump the gun on an entry above 22 if we do retest it, which I don't think we will, unless the overall markets continue to move up higher on Monday. That will completely negate what I just said, right? But I want to be assessing my risks, perfectly here before the market opens. So for the fact that we haven't retested $22 here on Friday, just makes me think that there is a possibility for us to come back down after this retest of the 50 SMA and possibly use 21 as a new level of support or retest this descending level of resistance, right, which is around 20.50. Okay, so right here. All right, I'll just make a visual line here for you guys. All right, 20.50. So this could definitely be another retest as a new level of support from the previous level of resistance, right? It's coinciding descending level of resistance with the horizontal level of 20.50. All right, so our fourth name here is UPST. So this one is similar to ASAN, except it hasn't broken out yet. And this macro, very, very large descending level of resistance that we've been making, I would say since mid-May, but it doesn't really matter here. I would say that this very big macro descending level of resistance is just the fact, and showing us the fact that sellers are very, very prominent in this name, right? I mean, the fall of this name is incredible, right? The high of this name was at 400 something here, I believe. Yeah, so $401.49. So there's heavy amount of supply overhead, all right? And it will take a lot of buying to come back into this name if you want to see any type of a short squeeze type of move like we saw on ASAN on Friday out of this descending level of resistance. But UPST has a larger, way larger level of resistance here to the downside, right? So for this one, I would say be cautious because of the volume, right? As we've broken up to the upside after earnings here and filled in the gap, the earnings gap down, we've been seeing the volume drop off, right? It's literally like a staircase, right? We're just falling down like this. And for the fact that we are falling down in volume while we're going up, and when we retested the descending level of resistance, including all the major SMAs that we have here that are entangled and coiled with each other, right? So this 10 and 21 and 50 SMA, that tells me that there is a possibility that we can still consolidate right underneath the 50 SMA. So we can do something like this, all right? And once we get really close to this convergence point, or converging point between the 20.20 support level and the macro descending level of resistance, then we can get that nice breakout to the upside, right? Now, if we do this, okay, if we start to consolidate right underneath this descending level of resistance once more, if the volume continues to die off, then I will expect a nice breakout point at $22. However, if we don't do any type of consolidation and we just simply straight up move above this descending level of resistance, then your confirmed entry point will be 24.10. All right, this will be the point of entry here where we can see the price coming back all the way up to 26 and all the way up to 28.50. And eventually I want to see this name at 30s. right? So our fifth name here is EVGO. Now, I particularly love this name for this week because as a very ugly name, right? Take a look at the monthly time frame here, right? We've just been going straight down after hitting new all-time highs shortly after IPO, and then after that, it's just been a complete movement to the downside. However, I do like the fact that we're making, okay, this very macro falling wedge. Okay, so let me switch the colors here. And this huge falling wedge here just shows me that possibly this company can have a very, very nice bullish move to the upside. And if that does happen, we can retest the previous pivot high points that we see on this candlestick, on the monthly time frame, and on this candlestick as well. And that gives me hope because just based on the overall bigger picture time frames here, like the weekly and monthly, we can see a very nice looking macro falling wedge, which is inherently bullish. And I love the fact that we've been building a base in between these descending trend lines, right? This descending level of support and descending level of resistance, which makes up that overall macro falling wedge. So what does that mean, right? As we're building this base here, we're kind of in the middle point, right, between these descending level of resistance and support, right? These two descending trend lines. And whenever I see that happening within some sort of a channel, right, since a falling wedge does make the price stick within a tight channel as it continues to move lower and closer to that converging point between these two trend lines, right? We usually tend to see very erratic movement to the upside and to the downside, where we retest the descending level of resistance and retest the descending level of support, right? So both of these levels, these retests on both of these levels have been seen already. And what makes what makes this different? Okay, well, the fact that we're consolidating like this and kind of accumulating, so potentially bringing in attention to buyers around this medium point here between the descending level of resistance and descending level of support, gives me the confidence that we're able to move up higher and eventually hit 8.50 or around 8.90, right? But there has to be a good amount of buying coming in, around 7.75. So if we have to, if I have to guess here, the volume is dying off. So if you want to eventually see that breakout above 7.75, we have to, like I said, see an increase in volume. All right. But with EVGO as an ugly name, this one hasn't broken out to the upside as much yet, right? Like any other ugly name. So make sure you guys watching this one. This is definitely a high watch for me this week. It may be one of the easiest trades for this week as well. So make sure you guys set your alerts on this one. All right, so our sixth name here is CLF. So this one is also just like EVGO, all right? The fifth name that I've just shown you is showing a very nice macro falling wedge, right? We've been forming this since the summer rally. And for the fact that we've formed this falling wedge, just tells me that the price is slowing down. The price is slowing down in the decrease or the downtrend that we saw since hitting its high point of 34.04 for this year. And I love the fact that we're defending the weekly 200 SMA, right? And this 200 SMA is proving to be a challenge here for this name. And as we're forming this weekly, or just simply put, macro falling wedge above or around the 200 SMA, tells me that there is a lot of fighting going on. But last week, we saw some very, very good bullish action throughout the entire week, actually, on CLF, right? So we saw this great movement to the upside, and earnings are done, right? So after retesting this descending level of support trend line, we've now come to retest the descending level of resistance, right? And within around 2 weeks, right? Almost 2 weeks here. So that's very, very quick. And that could be telling me that there is a change of pace for buyers here. And the momentum can be increasing. And the volume is also telling me that as well. We're seeing an increase in volume, right? So don't pay attention to the color of the volume bars here. Just focus on the fact that we're seeing an increase in volume as we're heading up towards this descending level of resistance. All right, so this is giving me some good faith in CLF for this week as well. If we decide to break above this major level of resistance that also coincides with this descending level of resistance trend line, okay, this 15.50 level. If we break above this, this will be the true confirmation entry to the long side, and we can see a very, very large breakout on this macro falling wedge. Okay, so our seventh name here is FUV. So this one is a complete disaster of a stock. All right, so this is something that I won't be paying too much attention to, right? Because frankly speaking, this is a complete, really bad, like very, very bad stock. And I wouldn't want you guys to be stuck in this name in the long term. So this one is definitely going to be another one of those stocks where, for this week, again, where we see a potential short squeeze. And for FUV here, we have earnings coming up after hours on Monday. So I would suggest that you guys play this after earnings. Don't try to play this at all, and especially before earnings. But if you guys don't want to play this name at all because either it's too cheap or it's not your style to play penny stocks, then don't play it. Don't play it because, again, this is just a stock that we're looking at for fun for this week, since this is also a name that's very, very ugly, but hasn't seen that very, very large breakout and momentum buying going in as we've seen in the other names that we discussed in the CFO Discord, right? So make sure you guys keep in mind of that, right? Take notes, right? So FUV, definitely not something that you guys should be watching, but it can be a great day trading opportunity. All right, so our last name here and the eighth name that we have for this week is GOEV, all right? So this one is also interesting because this one is providing us with really good momentum buying. And this is also obviously a very ugly name. However, all right, this one is done with earnings, right? And after earnings here, we really haven't moved as much, okay, even on Thursday and Friday. And then on Friday, we got that huge candlestick, right? And with this huge candlestick comes this notion, this bias in my head saying that, okay, well, on Friday, we really didn't have the market moving as much and the pretty names just sold off. So could this name continue on Monday all the way to the upside, right? Even after having a huge 30.58% return on the day on Friday, right, on close. And it seems like we're able to see a big potential move above 1.61, which is the reason why I gave you guys that confirmation entry above 1.61. And obviously, I also gave you guys a first entry as well, which is kind of the earlier, quote unquote, earlier entry if we decide to pull back, right? However, names like this, if we pull back, we have a higher probability, just like FUV here, okay, of sellers retaking the reins and coming back full force and pushing the price lower once more. All right, and that's the reason why I'm saying these are very, very bad and ugly looking stocks. And it's something that I wouldn't want you guys to focus on. So these are just names, the seventh one and the eighth one here, FUV and GOEV. Again, names that we will only look at for fun and you will day trade if we see that opportunity to get in with our entry points. Okay? All right, so that's it for this week. Make sure you guys hit that like button below if you guys enjoyed these lists of stocks here. And if you guys have any questions on the technical analysis on all these 8 names, make sure you guys leave a comment down below and ask that question. I will always answer as soon as possible and to the best of my ability. All right, I'll see you guys in the CFO Discord and good luck tomorrow. Thank you all for listening.